One day, a king says to himself, I have everything. I reign over the world. Is there a man who has no trouble and knows no worries other than me? He then decides to check this for himself. One night, he sneaks under the windowsills of the houses to listen to people. In every house, everyone has problems. Here, the store is not profitable. Elsewhere, we have troubles with the government, and so on. He then sees a small, low house sunk into the ground, whose windows are flush with the ground, and the roof falls into wreckage. Inside, a very happy man is playing the violin. In front of him, there is a large container full of wine and food. The man is very content. He has no worries. The king enters the house and greets his occupant, Yehuda. He offers him a drink and invites him to stay at his home for the night. The king is astonished. His host is constantly happy and remains careless, although he lives in a precarious situation. The next morning, the king asks Yehuda, "What are you living on?" "Oh," said Yehuda, "I know how to fix all that is broken. Every morning I repair some objects, and when I earn 5 or 6 gold coins, I buy what it takes to eat and drink." Hearing these words, the king says to himself, "I'm going to ruin him." He then publishes the following decree: whoever possesses a broken object shall not have it repaired by anyone. He will either have to repair it himself or buy a new one. The next morning, Yehuda goes in search of objects to be repaired, but is informed of the royal decree. Although annoyed, he continues in his path because he has confidence in God. He ends up meeting a rich man who is cutting wood. He asks him, "How can you cut wood yourself? It doesn't suit your rank. I looked for a lumberjack, but I didn't find one." Says Yehuda, "You know what? Let me do it. I'll cut the wood." In exchange for this work, the rich man gives him a gold coin. Yehuda continued to cut wood elsewhere until harvesting 6 gold coins. He then buys something for a good meal. Shortly after, the king returns to see Yehuda and how he's managing. He sees him sitting in front of a meal, and he's still very content. He asks him, "How did you manage to buy so much food? Must be very expensive." "Well, previously I repaired all kinds of damaged objects. Then the king decreed not to allow anything to be repaired by anyone. I then cut wood until I made enough money for my meal. The king then decrees not to have wood cut by anyone else." On his side, Yehuda searched for wood to be cut again, but he's informed of the king's decree. Once again, his trust in God made him continue on his way till he met a man cleaning a stable. He asks him, "Why do you clean this stable?" "I didn't find anyone to do this work, so I'm stuck doing it myself." Yehuda says, "You know what? I'll clean it for you." Yehuda receives 2 gold coins for his work. He then goes on his way, cleans other stables until he gets 6 gold coins. Then, as usual, he buys himself a good meal and goes home. A little later, the king returns to Yehuda's house. He asks him again where his meal comes from, and Yehuda tells him all his little issues. "Well, the king decreed that henceforth no one has the right to have his stable cleaned by anyone else." Shortly after, when Yehuda is looking for stables to clean, he's informed of the new royal decree. Yehuda then goes to a minister responsible for recruiting mercenaries for the king and employs him as a soldier, providing these conditions. He only commits for a specific period, and he must get paid every morning for the day to come. The minister has him put on his uniform and gives him his sword, and then he is sent to do his job. Once his task is over, Yehuda buys his daily meal and goes home. Hearing the news, the king summoned the minister and orders him not to pay anyone today. The next morning, Yehuda claims his pay to the minister. He refuses. We had agreed, however, that you had to pay me every day. Yes, but the king has decreed to not pay anyone today. Tomorrow you will receive double. However, today I cannot give you anything. Yehuda must then resolve to break a piece of his sword by replacing the missing end with wood. Then he borrows money, leaving the piece of sword as a pledge. Then he buys his daily meal again. The next day, the king returns to Yehuda and is amazed to see that he is eating his meal as usual. Yehuda then explains to the king, I was forced to break the blade of my sword and leave it as a pledge to buy my meal. When I receive my pay, I will take the blade and repair the sword, because I can repair anything that is damaged. Annoyed, the king summoned his minister and says to him, bring me the mercenary you have hired. The minister obeys and summons Yehuda. On his side, the king gathers all of his subjects so that they may witness this absurdity. A man put a piece of wood in the point of his sword. Yehuda comes to the king and asks him, my lord, why am I summoned? There is this person sentenced to death today. I want you to cut off his head, replied the king. Of course, Yehuda, never having killed anyone before, begs the king to choose someone else. But he replies that he alone must execute the condemned man, and on the spot. Yehuda then asks, are we sure of this sentence? If this judgment is unfounded, this man doesn't deserve the death penalty. Since I have never taken a person's life, how can I spill the blood of a man in whom there is doubt about his guilt? The verdict is incontestable, replied the king. This man is guilty because a decree has already been pronounced. Now you have to execute him. Yehuda realizes that the king will not change his mind. He then turns to God and implores, God Almighty, I have never spilt blood in my life. If this man is not punishable by death, I ask you that the iron of my sword be turned into wood. Yehuda seized his sword by showing that it is transformed into wood, and everyone laughs. The king realizes how much Yehuda is a very good man, and he decided to let him go in peace. Shabbat Shalom.